start by saying I'm not someone who scares easily. I've been a wildland firefighter for 11 years. I've worked fire lines in Montana, Oregon, and Idaho. I've spent more nights alone in the backcountry than I can count. Fear is something I manage, not something I feel. Or at least that's what I used to tell myself. This happened 3 summers ago in the Bitterroot National Forest in Montana. Our crew had been released early from an assignment because the fire had been contained faster than expected. I had 4 days before I needed to report back, and instead of driving home, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years: a solo hike. No crew, no radio chatter, no schedule, just me in the forest. I packed 3 days of food and picked a loop trail about 28 miles long. Nothing technical, the kind of trail I could walk in my sleep. The first day was perfect. I covered 11 miles, set up camp beside a creek, cooked dinner, and slept better than I had in weeks. The second day is when it started. I was about 2 miles from camp, picking my way through a section of old burn where the trail got faint, when I came across a campsite. Not a designated one. Someone had just set up in the middle of the burned area. A tent, a fire ring, a folding chair, like they'd been there a while. I called out. Nobody answered. I looked around. The ashes in the fire ring were cold, but not old. A tin cup sat on a flat rock beside the chair. I touched the side of it, still warm. I noted the sight and kept moving. Probably a hunter, I told myself. Probably just stepped away. I didn't think about it again until that evening, when I was setting up my own camp and I noticed the boot prints. They were in the soft dirt around my site. Fresh ones, pressed deep, like someone had been standing there for a while. They circled my tent location, which didn't make sense because I had just arrived and hadn't put the tent up yet. Someone had been standing at my campsite before I got there. I told myself it was a coincidence. A hiker had stopped here to rest earlier in the day. I put the tent up and cooked dinner and watched the tree line until it got too dark to see. I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of something moving outside. Not an animal. I know what animals sound like in the dark. This was deliberate. Slow. Footsteps on dry pine needles, one at a time, like someone trying hard not to be heard. I lay completely still and listened. They circled my tent once, then stopped. I waited. Nothing moved for a long time. Then I heard breathing, close enough that it had to be within a few feet of the tent fabric. I unzipped the tent fast and came out with my headlamp. There was a man standing 10 feet from me. He was maybe 60, weathered, wearing old canvas work clothes. No pack, no headlamp, nothing in his hands. He didn't flinch when my light hit him. He just stood there looking at me like I was the one who had appeared out of nowhere. I said, "Can I help you?" He didn't answer right away. He looked at me for a long moment, and then he looked at my tent, and then back at me. He said, "You're camping in the wrong spot." I asked him what that meant. He didn't explain. He just turned and walked back into the trees, and I lost him in the dark within about 4 steps. I didn't sleep again. I packed everything at first light, and I was back at the trailhead by noon. I've thought about that man every time I've gone into the Bitterroot since. I've never seen him again. I've asked around, rangers, other crews, people who know that forest well. Nobody knows who he is. Nobody has ever seen a campsite where I described it. My name is Joanna. I'm a botanist. I spend a lot of time in remote wilderness areas doing field work, which means I'm comfortable in places that most people would find Genuinely frightening. Dense forest, no trails, no signal. That's just Tuesday for me. I'm telling you that so you understand that what I'm about to describe is not me overreacting to normal forest sounds. I know what normal forest sounds like. This was 2 summers ago. I was doing survey work in a section of the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest in Washington, cataloging plant species in a remote drainage that doesn't get much foot traffic. I had a field partner, a grad student named Theo, and we'd been working the area for 3 days without seeing another person. The work was going well. The drainage had an interesting mix of species, and we were finding things worth documenting. We set up a base camp at the top of the drainage and day hiked down each morning. On the 3rd evening, we found the rope. It was tied between 2 trees about 200 meters from our camp, at chest height, running across what would have been an obvious walking path if you were moving through that area in the dark. It was paracord, the bright orange kind, but it had been wrapped in strips of bark and dead moss. Camouflaged. Someone had deliberately camouflaged a chest-height rope across a path. Theo thought it was a snare of some kind. I didn't think so. The height was wrong for any animal you'd snare in that forest. We pulled it down and brought it back to camp. We talked about it over dinner. We didn't come up with an explanation that felt good. That night I woke up to a sound I still can't fully describe. It was coming from somewhere down the drainage, below our camp. A low sound, rhythmic, almost like chanting, but not quite. It rose and fell. It had a pattern. It went on for at least 20 minutes. I woke Theo up. He heard it too. We sat in the dark and listened, and neither of us said anything for a long time. The sound never got closer. It never got further away. It just continued at the same distance, the same rhythm, for 20 minutes, and then stopped. All at once. Like someone had flipped a switch. The forest after that was the quietest I have ever heard a forest. No insects, no wind, nothing. We left the next morning. We didn't finish the survey. I told myself we had enough data, and the truth is, we did have enough data. But that wasn't why we left, and Theo and I both knew it. A week later, I filed a report with the Forest Service about the rope. I described exactly where we had found it and what it looked like. A ranger called me back and told me they had sent someone to check the location. He said they found evidence that the area had been used regularly. He said they found more rope. He didn't tell me how much more. He said they were looking into it. That was 2 years ago. I called twice to follow up. Both times I was told the matter was still under review. I haven't been back to that drainage. I don't plan to. I need to start by saying, this is not a ghost story. I don't believe in ghosts. I'm a practical person. I'm a nurse. I deal in facts and evidence and things I can measure. What happened to me in the Washita National Forest in Arkansas 4 years ago has a human explanation. I'm certain of that. That's what makes it worse. My husband Dave and I had been planning this trip for months. 5 days, backcountry, a loop trail neither of us had done before. We had a permit, proper gear, and a campsite reserved for each night. We were strict about that. Every site was reserved. Every night was planned. The 3rd night's site was called Shelter 7 on the permit map, 3 miles from the nearest trailhead. No road access, no facilities. We were supposed to be the only people there. When we arrived, the fire ring had fresh ash. Dave said it was probably from the group who had the site the night before. That was reasonable. That made sense. I looked at the ash, and I thought it looked very fresh, but I didn't say that. I didn't want to be the person who ruins a camping trip over ash. We set up the tent. We cooked dinner. Dave fell asleep by 9. I lay awake. I'm not sure what kept me awake. Some feeling I couldn't name. After about an hour of lying there, I decided to get up and get some water from the filter. I unzipped the tent quietly and stepped outside. The moon was up, and the site was bright enough to see clearly. I walked to where we'd hung the water filter on a branch near the creek. When I turned around to walk back, I saw that our tent had a shadow on it that shouldn't have been there. It was the shadow of a person, standing on the other side of the tent from me, on the far side, between the tent and the tree line. I stood completely still. The shadow didn't move. I walked around the tent slowly, keeping my headlamp pointed forward. There was no one there. I checked the tree line with my light. Nothing. I stood there for a long time. Dave was still asleep. I didn't wake him. I didn't know what I would say. I got back into the tent, and I lay there until morning. At first light, I looked around the site in the daylight. On the far side of the tent, in the soft ground between the tent and the tree line, I found footprints. 2 of them, side by side, facing the tent. No prints leading in, no prints leading out. I woke Dave. I showed him. I watched his face go through the same sequence mine had gone through. First skepticism, then confusion, then something he didn't have a word for. We packed and left within the hour. When we reported it to the permit office, the ranger who took our information paused for a moment before he responded. He asked us which site we had been on. I told him, Shelter 7. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That site has come up before." He didn't say anything else. He just thanked us for reporting it. I asked him what it had come up for. He said he wasn't able to share that information. We have not been back.